Hi, and welcome to everybody here to a very, very special Global Live Speakers Summit today. It is indeed our 30th summit, and we're very, very glad to be welcoming 6 incredible thought leaders and inspirational people in their own field of expertise to talk about our topic today, which is the power of forgiveness. So without further ado, I just want to remind you that we are Global Speakers Talk. We're a company that we are trying to inspire people to use their voice. Everyone has a voice that they need to get out there and share with people. You have something to say that you want to share with others. We make that possible here at Global Speakers Talk. So we would love it if you would come on board and be part of our community. I'm your host today. I'm Lisa Marie Igbenovia. I wear several hats. I'm going to be hosting these 6 wonderful speakers. I'm a teacher, an artist, a speaker, and the owner of Exquisite Learners. I'm also a children's book illustrator. Now we go to the exciting part. I've been told I'm not allowed to sing happy birthday to us, even though it is our 30th today. So I will spare you that, and we will move very quickly to our very first speaker today on the power of forgiveness. And coming up to the stage now, our virtual stage here at GST, we have the lovely Charlene Lynch, and she's going to come and talk to us. She is a speaker who talks about mind shift to create momentum with 5 actionable steps to expansive growth. Now, Charlene helps wellness practitioners to stand out and to streamline and scale their consulting businesses so that they can work less and earn more. She's also a body language expert, and it's specializing in on camera, isn't it, Charlene? So welcome to the stage. Lovely to have you here.
What if I told you all of your dreams could come true? You can be, do, have, and share everything your heart desires. Would you want to know what it is? If it's only 2 things, put your hand up or say yes in the chat so I know that you're interested. Yes, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Tina. Thanks, Chris. Yes, we got thumbs up. It's very simple. You just need to start with a vision of what your life could look like and follow up with the decisions to make it all come true. Now, that sounds easy, and it is when you understand what's getting in the way of you living your highest, truest vision of your life. To get from where you are to where you want to be is going to create change. We need change to get there. Some change comes easy, and some change feels like 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And that's because we, us humans, we're not designed for change. It's been said, if you show me the boy at 7, I'll show you the man. We are just rinse and repeat from 7 years on. And now I'm 56, so that's a lot of rinse and repeat. Yes, and if you're an adult, and everyone here that I can see in the room is, we think something like 70,000 thoughts a day. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts day in and day out. And if you're over 35, and I won't even ask you to put your hand up if you're over 35, the smiles in the room tell me that you are, is that 95% of your daily thoughts are subconscious. You don't even know you're having them. So how can we get this change? How can we get this momentum? How can we move forward? It's very easy. We only need to have a 1% shift. And yes, it can start with forgiveness. And that's what I would love to share with you today, is my personal story of forgiveness. September 2011, I come home early from a birthday party, which that in itself is quite a surprise because I'm never home early. I'm usually the last one to leave a party. And I was relatively sober, which for me is quite a feat. And I want to let my beautiful 17-year-old baby boy know mummy's home. So in true mummy style, I yell out, I'm home, sort of sober. And there's no response. So I go and I knock on his door, and there's still no response. And I figure, 17, he's probably gaming and wearing those headsets and sitting in his room, this far from his computer screen. So I asked my then partner, can you go around the outside of the house and look in through his window? I'll position myself here in the laundry so that I can look through and we'll get his attention. Because, what could he be doing in his room? And that's when I see my partner's face. All of the blood runs from his face. I can't see what he can see. but I know it's serious. So I run to Scott's room and I kick the door down. And that's when I find out that my baby boy, my 17-year-old baby boy, has hung himself. I try for 15 long minutes to try and resuscitate him, all while praying that he'll come back to life. The ambulance officers come with their hands fully laden with equipment and they usher me out of his room. And I sit out of his room. I'm standing there still praying that they can do what I couldn't do and bring my baby boy back to life. The ambulance officer comes out of Scott's room and I know that he said something. His lips moved, but I couldn't hear what he said. The look on his face was enough and I crashed to the ground, still praying that a miracle would happen. And then I heard it. I heard it, one word, very loud. I thought everybody could hear this word. One word, and that word was the answers to my prayers, not the answer I was hoping for. That one word was forgive. Oh. It took me some time to be able to stand up. And by the time I could stand up, the ambulance officer said, do you want to come in and say your goodbyes to your boy? So I did. I went in. My boy was 6'2", almost 6'3". And so I lied down on the ground and I rested my head on his chest and I said, oh, Mommy loves you, baby. I love you so much. And I forgive you for your choice. And what I didn't understand is by me having that act of forgiveness was allowing me to heal at the speed of love. Everything changed when I came from that space of forgiveness. Yes, and it took a lot longer for me to forgive me than it did for me to forgive my son in that instance. Later on that night, as I'm sitting in my lounge room and the CIB's there and the police are there and everyone's asking questions, I'm in my own world and my feet are stuck in underneath me and I'm staring at my giant cup of coffee that's now going cold. And I said, oh, I'm going to thrive through this. I'm not just going to survive. That's what Scott would want. A decision was made to live a different life. I did not know what a different life could look like, but I began my journey with forgiveness and now I've made a decision to live a different life. That night, nobody slept. I stared at the ceiling for most of the night, but when I got out of the bed in the morning, not refreshed at all, I grabbed a spiral-bound book and I started writing out all of the things that I was thankful for. Now, I knew enough as a woman of faith that you need to bring prayer and gratitude to things to shift and change things. But I started to write out things that I was grateful for, and I managed to fill a couple of pages. I started to feel a little bit better. I still have a gratitude practice. I do it every day. I either say it and I write it down. It makes all of the difference. Those 3 steps were the steps that begun my journey of shifting from where I was to where I am today. And it started with forgiveness. And listeners, can I ask you, who do you need to forgive? Is it yourself? Because for most of us, that's where the journey needs to begin. But forgiveness can help you heal at the speed of love. Making the decisions as to what your life could look like, and then lifting your frequency with gratitude. Now, it's been a long journey, September 2011 to now. Yes, and everything that I've hoped for has come to pass. I'd like to paint you a picture of what it was like for me back in September 2011. I had been an alcoholic for more than 30 years. And not just a little alcoholic, we're talking 5 bottles a day. So I was a highly functioning alcoholic. OCD to the point of self-harm. ADHD to the point of total distraction. Severely overweight and very unhealthy. And a chronic hoarder. Not just a little bit of stuff, we're talking 33 cubic meters of junk surrounding me. The weight of the world I was carrying is what it felt like. The next thing after the gratitude journal, what I started to do is to write down a list of what I wanted my life to look like. So there I stand with the spiral-bound folder in my hand shaking and my voice shaking as I write down world-class transformational public speaker. How dare I write that down? Who was I? I couldn't even put a string of sentence together. How could I, an alcoholic, OCD, ADHD, all the challenges that I had, how could I stand on a stage and share my story of transition? It hadn't even happened. But I started with forgiveness. I made a decision for a different life. And then I started and raised my frequency with gratitude. What I'd love to do is share with you the 5 steps to the shift process that changed everything. Now, I didn't know these shifts were happening at the time. This is retrospectively as I've been able to unpack what happened for me. But it starts with very simple 5 letters. And the first one is S. So it spells shift. The first one is S. And S is to see the big picture. See the big picture. What is the big picture for your life? If you can bring forgiveness to your life, what would that look like? What heavy burdens could you let go so you can move on? What is possible for your life? Where could you live? How many hours a week could you work? Who could you work with? What could your health look like? All of this is possible when you start it from seeing the big picture. Have a huge vision. The vision needs to be so big that it's uncomfortable. I can tell you what I wrote down, world-class transformational speaker. I slammed the book up because there's just no way that even felt remotely possible. When you write down the vision of what your life could look like, if it's believable, it's not big enough. It needs to be big, so big it feels impossible. And that way, the little things that happen to you would just feel like pebbles on the sand, not the cliff face that they can be. The next letter is H, and H is to hone in on reality. Where are you right now? Now, this is where most therapies start, getting you to get real about where you are. Now, when you are carrying around a lot of mental illnesses, physical illnesses, if you ask that person to have a look at where they are, they just get thicker, deeper into the quagmire. I know I did. But when you can start with a vision of what's possible for your life, then you can take a step back to hone in on reality of where you are now. This might be where you need to get coaches, mentors. It's where I needed to go to AA. It's where I needed to go to groups and have conversations with other parents that have lost children to suicide. So, honing in on reality is a place where you'll probably need support from other people to move through. The next letter, and possibly my favorite letter, is I. And I is to implement quick wins. That night, as I stared at my giant cup of coffee that was going cold, I have not had coffee since that day. Now, I was an 8-cup-a-day coffee girl. When you're drinking 5 bottles of red wine, you need to have 8 cups of coffee to get you through to balance it out. I haven't had coffee since that day. That was a quick win for me. So sometime after, it was in the first week, I'm like, I haven't had a cup of coffee. Isn't that interesting? And then this became a quick win. If I can give up coffee, maybe I can give up the alcohol. Maybe. What are the quick wins in your life? This beautiful summit that you're here today to hear, you're going to hear some really golden bits of information from the rest of my beautiful learned colleagues. Can I ask you to implement a quick win from some things that you've heard here today? Because implementation is our biggest challenge as a human being. It's not information, it's implementation. So implement quick wins. They only have to be tiny wins to head you in the right direction. The next letter is F. F is to focus on the patterns. Focus on the patterns. And it's as simple as journaling. Just writing things down on a daily basis. They'll start to emerge from the pages like pictures. You'll see them. The stories, you'll see them. The patterns will repeat over and over and over again. You'll see the patterns of your language, the patterns of your thoughts. And this way you can shift those patterns. But we need to have awareness for the patterns before we can change them. So they might not even be your patterns. They could be family patterns. I know when I started journaling and I started talking to my mum about, I don't know, at 38, I had suicide ideation. Mum said, at 38, I left home. So my mother left us at 38 years old. We're like, wow, could that be a coincidence? And then we're both sitting there still drinking our cup of tea. We're going, oh, gosh, grandma, her mum, my grandmother committed suicide at 38. Now, isn't that interesting? Family patterns, that's one of hundreds I could share with you. They're thick and they're fast and they're everywhere. But if we want to have a different life for our children, we need to break the family patterns in this generation so they don't need to. And for those of you who believe in past lives, it might not even be a this life pattern. It could be a past life pattern. And for that, you'll need to see a specialist. And the last letter of the shift process is T. Take massive action. I am a recovering perfectionist, so I wouldn't take action. I was like a deer in headlights, just staring at the lights. Can I ask you to take massive imperfect action and just start from where you are? It only needs to be a little step, that's all. A little step in the right direction, and you can always course correct. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be in the right direction. These 5 steps, the shift process, have changed everything that I do. This is part of the keynote that I give. It's also part of the coaching program that I share. It has made a massive difference to me, to my life. I'm now married to the man of my dreams, which I'm very happy about now, 140 days. Live in house and garden. It's right on the river. It's just perfect. It's amazing. And there's just no clutter to be seen. I live a different life. Haven't had any alcohol for nearly 8 years and no coffee for 11. I've lost the 25 kilos. I've been a vegetarian now for quite some time and to live a completely different life. My OCD is now my superpower, and my ADHD, it just keeps me entertaining every day. You too can live the life of your dreams when you start with a vision of where your life could be and follow it up with the decisions to make it all come true, and start your journey with forgiveness. Thank you.
Wow, Charlene, I was just actually writing in the chat how inspirational that was. What can I say? You made me feel that I could implement straight away and make changes. It was that powerful. So thank you so much. I hope that other people listening had the same feeling as I did. And hearing your story, which was so emotional. I'm so sorry that you went through that. And I'm so happy that you were able to share that story with us, because I know that many people will take this wonderful message that you've given us today from what you've shared. So thank you, Charlene. Does anyone in the comments, do we have any questions? Are there any questions from the panel? I think you've all stunned us to silence, Charlene, because what can you say after that? And what a wonderful opening to this great summit of the 30th. I'm going to keep mentioning it because I'm quite proud. So thank you, Charlene. We're going to move now to our next speaker, who is going to be equally as powerful. I just want to I'm just putting up my notes here because I had lost them. And I just wanted to check who's next up. Oh, it's Lois Wagner. Lois, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, actually, Lois. But Lois is a speaker, a storyteller, an author, a mentor, an inspirer, a learning facilitator, and an empowering coach. She's a public speaking coach for people who are facing life or business challenges or adversity and want to develop resilience and grit to survive. And people who want to understand forgiveness is to find freedom. So Lois, thanks for joining us on the GST stage today.
Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. So my story began, I was working outside in a courtyard, beautiful summer's evening. And the first that I was aware that anybody else was near was when there was a man behind me with his hand around my throat and a screwdriver held to my neck. Well, you all know about fight, flight, or flee. I fought with everything I had. I didn't know how to fight, but I fought. He stabbed me in the ear. He stabbed me in the mouth. He broke my teeth. He strangled me. He grabbed a glass. He smashed it. He came at me at my stomach. He cut my stomach open. I was desperate. I stopped fighting, and this evil person pushed me into a corner and raped me. Well, that changed my life. 14 years later, This man had been given a 25-year prison sentence for what he did to me. 14 years later, I was living outside of the country, and I was coming home for my first holiday. And in those 14 years, I'd never found out what had happened to him. Was he still in prison? Had he been paroled? Was he alive? Was he dead? I'd never bothered to find out. And for some reason, I decided to find out. And they told me that he was coming up for parole on the day after I arrived back in the country. It was too much of a coincidence, because the law had just changed, allowing victims of serious crimes to attend parole hearings. So I decided to go, much against the advice of family and friends. So there I was, heading off to this prison, the first person in the country to do so, to attend one of these parole hearings. They didn't know how to handle me. I didn't know how to handle me. I didn't know what I was going to say. I had done some research on forgiveness just in case, but I never thought that I could forgive this man. There were so many side effects from that event. I lost my business as a result. I had psychosomatic back problems that kept me bedridden for 6 months, all as a direct result of what he did to me. And so I never thought that forgiveness was possible. But I sat there in that parole hearing and listened to all of his rap sheet and what he had done and what he had not done in prison. And when they had finished, they asked me if I had anything to say. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said something to the effect was, I want to compassionately and completely forgive you. And I want to take the responsibility from me, and I'm handing it from my higher self, and I'm giving it back to your higher self. You must now take responsibility. Everybody was dumbstruck. Nobody knew what to say. And as I left, they said to me that they would tell me in 7 days if he got parole or not. And the most amazing thing happened. I looked at them and I said, no, I don't want to know if he gets parole or not. The beauty of forgiveness, the absolutely amazing thing about forgiveness is that you are bonded to that person, to that event, to that situation. And when you forgive, you're breaking that bond and you're setting yourself free. And I just looked at them, I said, no, I don't need to know, because he now has nothing to do with me anymore. What happens to him is of no concern to me. I am now free. I will never forget what happened, but I'm free of that emotional pain, that anger, the hatred, the fear. And I had a lot of fear because I had been attacked. And breaking that bond released me completely to this wonderful, free and peaceful world. And so I say to people, don't wait 14 years. It's not easy to forgive when something is still fresh in your mind. I could not forgive at the beginning, even if I had wanted to, because when you've faced some kind of trauma, you've got to deal with those emotions, that anger, that hate. And I didn't deal with those emotions. And that resulted in me having psychosomatic back problems, because I was loading my back with all my emotions and all my problems and not dealing with it. And so my back eventually collapsed, and that was me finished. And so you can't forgive when you're in that state. You need to deal with your emotions, but don't wait 14 years. And forgiveness is like a muscle. You can all learn forgiveness. And the previous speaker was speaking about her gratitude journal. Keep a gratitude journal. It's powerful. But in addition to a gratitude journal, keep a forgiveness journal. We can forgive. We don't think we need to forgive, but we need to forgive. Practice using this muscle of forgiveness. And every day, 3 things you can forgive yourself for. Forgive yourself for kicking the dog, for eating your slipper, for burning the toast, for forgetting to phone your friend for her birthday. They sound silly. They sound, oh, I don't have to forgive myself for that. But it's building that muscle, and it's making forgiveness a habit. I had to forgive myself for not knowing how to fight, for not dealing with my emotions, for drinking too much afterwards. And then forgiving the other person. 3 things every day. Forgive the dog for eating your slipper. Forgive your husband for forgetting to bring the milk home. Forgive the friend who forgot to phone you for your birthday. Again, build that muscle. Use that muscle. It is the most powerful thing. Today, forgiveness is so easy for me. I call myself Lois, your friend for forgiveness, because it comes naturally now. I can't harbor that resentment and that hatred and that fear. It really breaks you free from that fear, from that angst and that agony. I see we've lost our host. I hope she comes back. So please, everybody, practice that forgiveness every day, 3 things until it becomes part of who you are. It's the most empowering thing you can ever do. So I just say to everybody, don't wait. Do it sooner rather than later, but after you have dealt with your emotions. Pick yourself up from that situation. Divorce, separate the incident from your emotions. Laugh, find the funny. There is funny in it. I've got lots of funny stories that happened afterwards. Find the funny, laugh, learn. What is the lesson you've learned from that? Forgive yourself, forgive others, take action, and move on to greater things. That is my PLIFM formula that I use, and I invite everybody to forgive and to fly free.
Thank you so much, Lois. That was really, really emotional and impactful. Again, I think that you had an amazing idea there with the journal. I think that is something that I want to adopt, because I realized as I was listening to you speaking, how often we probably have thoughts where we need to forgive ourselves just for little moments, you know, or forgive others around us. Like when you mentioned the dog eating the slipper. And I think that could be very powerful for people who are finding it difficult to forgive. And I love the way you talked about, you know, embracing the fact that you've been through a trauma and that you do need to recover from that trauma before you can expect to forgive. But I love the message that you give, to not wait too long. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Terrible experience, but I am very glad that you were able to share it with us, because I know that in sharing you have inspired many people. So thank you so much for talking about that today. Absolutely brilliant. Does anyone have any questions in the panel for Lois? I'll just check quickly in the chat. We've got a few people watching and quite a lot of comments. Certainly people saying that they can relate, brave, inspiring, you know, helping you through the journey, taking action. So thank you so much, Lois, for sharing that with us. And we're going to move on to our next speaker, who we've got for our lineup. We are going through today, and now we have a very inspirational gentleman. Mr. Chris Felton is up next, and he is an Amazon best-selling author. He's also a 7-figure entrepreneur, a speaker, and the owner of a financial services company. He leads and trains 200 agents across the US, helping over 17,000 clients so far. And Chris speaks on stages to audiences over 20,000 and appears on top podcasts, which reach millions of listeners around the world. We are very proud to have him here today on our GST stage to talk about the power of forgiveness. Welcome, Chris.
It's awesome to be here. I'm like, do I even need to speak after those first 2 stories? I'm like, dude, your forgiveness story is kind of lame compared to, wow, Lois, what the heck, woman? Holy crap. That was like one of the best stories I've ever heard. Like, thanks for sharing that. That was awesome. And I see your cat, and I love cats. Anyway. So my story, my bottoming out was during the Great Recession, about 2008. I recently gotten married. I was $250,000 in credit card debt. I was having to pay my ex-wife $5,200 at the beginning of the month in alimony and child support. I had a 6,000 square foot lease that I couldn't afford, and And once my current second and last wife, in case she's listening, once she found out that how could a CPA and a financial advisor be absolutely broke, and she threw her purse at me. What kind of woman throws her purse at her husband? What's up with that? A pissed off woman throws her purse at her husband. My wife is 5'1". Everyone's scared of her. Hurricane Marlowe's not fun. But we had the fight of our lives. And one of my awakening moments was I had a lot of problems, and wherever I've had a problem in my life, I've always been there. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but I was the common denominator to all my problems. And so in that moment, I decided to take 100% responsibility for the crap show that was my life. And so my wife and I luckily came together the next day, and she said, we're staying together. We're not declaring bankruptcy. We're not getting jobs. We're going to figure out our business. And she got on planes, trains, and automobiles to really figure out what world-class couples who had wealth, but they had wealth in all areas of their life, what they do. And our first book, Couples Money, came from that. And then she was kind of like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Chris Felton? And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how this keeps creating broke. And so I just said, I'm no longer interested in changing. I'm committed. And there's a difference. When you're interested, you'll hit adversity, you'll hit roadblocks, and you'll take what I call a chicken exit, and you'll just kind of go on to the next thing. And one of the most ridiculous things in our society today is the belief that you can get something for nothing. And you can't. And I was looking for that. And I said, well, now I'm going to be committed. She's like, what's committed? I'm like, you know how an Olympic athlete treats their sport? That's going to be me with my personal growth and development, and mainly around my mindset around money, because I knew what to do, but I wasn't doing it. And we live, I'm in the United States, richest country on the planet. 90% of people are broke, and there's a reason. Their mindset just is not lined up with wealth. So I just got up, read, journaled, visualized, used different technologies. If you would have told me to stand on my head for an hour, I would have done it if I believed it was going to change my life. And we had a miraculous financial transformation. But most importantly, I had a personal, spiritual transformation. I'm 52. I feel better at 52 than I did at 42, even 32. And so anyway, so it amazing things, and it didn't happen overnight, but it happened over time. But I hired a world-class coach for about 4 years who was financially independent, who was a world-class person, a giver, unbelievable marriage, spiritually, all that. And, I'm a recovered CPA. You guys ever met a fully recovered CPA? It's a 12-step process. First step's denial. Anyway, so I'm a fully recovered CPA. And so I'm looking for what? The strategery. Okay, right? The strategies, the tactics, the how-tos, all that. Like that's the key. That's the key. That's the key. Even though I'm working 90 hours a week and I'm running a marathon with a bowling ball around my ankle, I didn't even realize it. So we do our first coaching session. We set some goals, and we end it. And he's like, "Okay, Chris, I got a homework assignment for you." Well, being a CPA, I'm like, "Oh, goody, homework! Yay! I love homework." And he said, you need to forgive your ex-wife. I'm like, what? Dude, she's horrible. Like, she's a horrible person. Like, haven't you been like listening to my stories? Like, whose side are you on? Like, what are you talking about? He said, dude, based on results, how's your way working? It's my least favorite question. Based on results, how's your way working? You're broke. Your current wife has got one foot out the door. You're a drunk. You're like, dude, based on result, it's the ultimate focusing question. When your ego is not your amigo, and when it wants to kick in and defend itself and right? Because we don't like to be told our way's not working. We don't like to be told that, especially guys, we're like, oh no, we got it. Well, got it handled. I'm good. One of my least favorite statements. I'm good. What does good mean? You're broke. Based on results, how's your way working? I'm like, all right. So that would snap me back into coachability. I want you to ask that question. We got a lot of coaches on here. It's a great question. Based on results, how's your way working? And I said, all right. He said, dude, if you don't forgive her, you will be a broke the rest of your life. You'll be broke. I'm like, all right. How do I do it? How do I forgive her? He's like, when we're done, I want you to grab a pad of paper and I want you to write her name at the top of the paper. And I want you to do this every day until you no longer need to do it. And you'll know. And I want you to write down everything you appreciate about her. And I was like, oh my God. I've never stared at a blank piece of paper for an hour. Just staring at her name. I'm like, dude, he's right. Because I don't think it's time management. I think it's energy management. And I had massive energy leaks in my life that was keeping me broke. It was keeping me stuck. And my resentment towards her was huge. And finally, about the top of the hour, I went, she's a great mom. And not only is she a great mom, she's a world-class mom. My kids are 22 and 19. I hit the dad jackpot with my kids. Right. She's unbelievable. Her husband, her second husband, the guy she should have really married, who loves her infinitely more than I ever did. Amazing dude. Never had a negative thought towards him. And so I did the exercise the next day and I found a couple other things. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to learn something. It's getting handed to me. There's a muscle I must develop. And then it just, and then about a month in, I'm like, I no longer needed to write the list of what I appreciated about her. I could just kind of run through it while I was working out or driving or whatever. But I went through the list every single day. And obviously we got a bunch of superstars on here. Your brain starts rewiring, your perception changes, you start viewing things different, you start releasing it. And I started texting her, Merry Christmas, Happy Mother's Day, Happy Birthday. Thanks for everything you do. And the transformation was phenomenal. And my kids, I'm in Colorado, my kids, she moved with them to Georgia when they were small, which I hated initially. But looking back, as I wrote my book and went through this journey, my kids needed to get the heck away from me while I got my stuff together. It was a massive blessing that they were at a distance. So, just started. And so my whole perception changed. And we never became besties, right? But there was such a great respect there. And I would fly in, and my kids were in a big like baseball hotbed, and they'd have, 7-8 games on a weekend. And I'd be sitting there, standing next to her, talking about the kids and talking about her parents and talking about our lives. And one time I was leaving this game, and this dad on the team came up to me and he's like, how do you do that? I'm like, what? That stand next to your ex-wife and talk thing. How do you do that? I'm like, because he just got divorced, right? And he stood by left field and his ex-wife stood by right field, right? And they like shot lasers through their foreheads. And I said, well, hey, there's this exercise. I recommend grab a pad of paper, write her name down. Right. And he's like, looked at me like I was an alien. And I started seeing, all the blessings from this forgiveness thing and just amazing things, not just financially, but my kids and me and my energy and my wife and I'm like, we will never speak ill word about my ex-wife ever again. We're not going to do it. Right. Because when you do that, you throw a poop covered boomerang out. Has anybody ever thrown a poop covered boomerang out? What happens if you throw a poop covered boomerang? Poop comes back, doesn't work. And so anyway, and so I just, I'm in a left brain financial services, financial advisory model, and people want me to come in and talk about strategy and the left brain and all that stuff. And I made a commitment to myself that I was always going to close every keynote around forgiveness. Right. And there's all these left brain dorky dudes like me in the crowd going, what is this guy talking about? And then I come off stage and they're lined up and I'm like, I nailed that. I gave them lots of good things to help them grow their business. And all anyone ever want to talk about, they're like, that was good, but like what you're telling me that the reason I'm stuck in my business and my life is I need to forgive XYZ. I'm like, I don't know, man. Based on results, how's your way working? And then one of my most memorable, and I'll wrap up with this, is I did a half-day workshop and I came off stage and I spent like 4 hours of, what I thought was great stuff. And I ended in forgiveness. And this guy walked up to me. He's about 62, had this beard. He was kind of looking at me, doing this. All right, man, that was good. But that last thing, you're telling me I need to forgive my ex-wife. I'm like, dude, how long's it been, bro? 30 years. Okay, bro. Based on results, how's my way working? It's not working. And he said, wait here. And I talked to a few more people and he went out to the parking lot and he called her and he talked to her for 30 minutes. And he came in and his eyes were just red. He had like snot in his beard. Like he had just been bawling. And he just looked at me. He looked 10 years younger. And he just gave me a big hug, kissed me on the cheek, walked out the door. It's huge. So anyway, in my book, Think and Grow You, I don't know if you can see it or not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's Think and Grow You, How to Get Out of Your Own Way and Level Up Your Life. Concept number 24 is forgive. Action step. The quote is, to forgive is to let a prisoner free and discover the prisoner was you. And the action step, make a list of everyone whom you hold a grievance against. List your thoughts concerning each grievance. This will provide a look into your own ego. Because what you don't like in others, you'll see in yourself, right? The thoughts you have about yourself, you'll often see in others. Begin the process of forgiving them and yourself. The reason people struggle financially is they don't think they deserve it. And one of the reasons they don't think they deserve it is because they beat themselves up for things of the past. If you don't forgive yourself, you'll never experience financial abundance. It'll never happen. And forgiveness is a forever process. It is an infinite game that we must play every single day. We all want peace. The path to peace is through forgiveness. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that wonderful story. The story made me feel like at times I wanted to almost cry, and at times I couldn't help but laugh, for you to turn such an amazing, inspirational story and to have its moments of joy there. Really, thank you for sharing your wisdom like that, because it really was true wisdom. In those last quotes you took from your book were just phenomenal. I mean, it reminds us of the thread that's been gone through what we've heard so far today, which is when you said about realizing the prisoner was you. I think that's a very powerful statement. If you don't forgive, it's only you that's getting the hurt from that. And I think as soon as people realize that and get on the journey of forgiveness, then that is the start, isn't it? It's about being aware. And I love what Lois said again about the journal. It feeds into what you said, Chris, about it being an ongoing journey. None of us are perfect in this world. We are all a work in progress, and we will continue to be so. So anybody else got any comments or any questions they want to share? I just thought that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. We are so lucky today on our summit because we have such amazing speakers sharing their wisdom to help you, the audience, in the power of forgiveness. Please tell us what your takeaways are in the chat. We'd love to know. And moving on to our next speaker, who's coming up to our GST stage now. And after Chris, now we have coming to the stage, Saulan. And she is an integrative life coach for the mind, body, and spirit. She incorporates complementary therapies with the Transform Yourself in 5 Simple Steps program that she herself developed. Growing up as a Chinese woman born in Australia, it gave her the passion for cultural diversity and for working tirelessly for human rights and social justice. Saulan, welcome to the GST stage. You're muted, lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm captured by the stories. Thank you for being able to share this platform. Firstly, I'd like to honour the Indigenous traditional owners of the land, past, present and emerging, from all Indigenous all over the world. You will never know how strong your heart is until you learn to forgive who broke it. My intention is to find the path to forgiveness, as it's a reflection of loving yourself to move on. And I can see the other speakers have talked quite a bit about that. The incredible gifts of forgiveness for me was when I really learned that I had to look inside myself. And that really started when I was growing at school. I had to learn how to forgive society, basically. I just didn't think I had a fair go. I had racism. I just never had a sense of belonging. And you think you need to belong somewhere. But after a while, I learned that I had to forgive the world almost, that I could have my own belonging and I only belong to myself. And that was huge. It takes a lot of courage to decide that you have to take that step to go forward. And the other thing that really made me move forward too was my divorce. All I could see was black. And, Chris shared it about his divorce and things like that. That divorce is traumatic. And it's great when you do learn forgiveness, which I did do. For some reason, my muscle for forgiveness was already in place. It just never got sort of generated much, but it certainly came up good when it needed to. It seemed to have this understanding inside myself that forgiveness was always a good thing, always hard to do, requires courage and wisdom. But once you actually can trigger and bring it to glimmer, then you can then move on. So when I had the divorce, and also things of loved ones who they want you to be able to be sorry for what you may have done to them. And that is a really hard one when it's difficult to understand other people, how they're feeling. So the compassion that comes with that, understanding, putting yourself in other people's shoes, and coming from other cultural backgrounds and having an understanding of that, and loving the diversity of our culture and our society. I think we need to value that and be grateful of the opportunities of learning and growing with an understanding. It's such a wonderful feeling for me, and I've always enjoyed my work for that reason. And so the reasons and benefits of forgiving have always been so heartfelt. Hard learning, they're hard learnings and they're uncomfortable at times. However, the thing is if it's not uncomfortable, it means you're not growing. So really important that you are growing, because you feel so good after that. It takes a while to, scratch the surface, pick up the pieces that are broken around you, but be in touch with your feelings. Feelings have been really important for me because I know how much damage they can actually do to your body. I actually have alopecia, which is hair loss. And the thing about forgiveness, the opposite of forgiveness to me is self-destruction. And I got to the stage where I really did self-destruct myself unknowingly, of course, not almost in denial probably of my own feelings and emotions. And I had probably had a pattern of that from school, learning to accommodate, learning to be the good girl, learning to try and fit in, never good enough. So accommodating. Also culturally, it's a little bit like always think of other people. You're selfish if you think of yourself, which is a very common thing, for people to say, well, I'm selfish. I can't, I have to be nice to people, but at the expense of yourself. And so my hair fell out from stress and anxiety. I didn't even realize my hair follicles were actually closing up. And that's what happens with alopecia. It's it's an uncommon and non-threatening, which is good. And for many years, well, I might leave that to the end actually a little bit, because I had to accept the fact that I had been not good to myself, really. And to do that, you have to forgive yourself. You really have to say to yourself, this is what happens when you're hard on yourself and you put everybody else before you. And we often do that, probably more as women. We tend to do that. It's an expectation of us to do that. And I'm not being sexist in saying that. I just feel that is how society sometimes places us. So acceptance what has happened, and then connect to your feelings and not to be judgmental on yourself. Don't think you're being selfish, and start doing a bit more self-care. Because the 5 steps that I have written in my book is really about, the first thing was the self-aware that the hair was actually falling out, that I was actually so stressed. I didn't even realize how stressed I was. I'm fine, I'm okay. Is everyone else okay? You're always worrying about everybody else. So do remember, when you go on an airplane, the first thing they say to you is put the mask on. You have to be able to be safe yourself before you can help anybody else. So it's a really message for myself that I always remember that now. And the second one for my steps is mindfulness. To have that self-awareness, I had to go into a lot of mindfulness. Now I love mindfulness. I meditate for about an hour and a half, because I just love going into that sacred space that we can have for ourselves. We learn not to be judgmental to ourselves and to others. It's always, to me, about self and others. What you can do for yourself always ripples. It's like a ripple effect that will just continue on and on if you can find it yourself. So it's very important. And I like to hang out with people who are happy. So it's good if you can support people to be happy as well. The third thing is to find your purpose. And if you can find your purpose, what you're really about and what you really love to do and your passion is. And my passion was really about peace and harmony, and all my social justice, even I was doing that before that. When I did a shamanic course, it really taught me that that's what I was about. I was told in past life, I remember Charlene mentioning about past lives, was that I was from the Native American culture, and I was left here. And I always felt abandoned in this life. And but when I was told that I was left here to bring peace and harmony, it really came home to me. Suddenly it all clicked in. Life was so different for me when I realized that that's what I really was here for, and I could own it. So the benefits of that forgiveness for myself was gratitude, because I really did learn that I had been hard on myself. I had been judgmental. I had mental health issues when I was a teenager. I had bad acne. I was a mess. And so I really had to learn to be in the now, because being in the present moment, I could forget about the past. That was doing me no good. It had limiting beliefs anyway. And then I go too much in the future, you'd scare yourself to death. You just wouldn't want to go there because you really couldn't see anything. So for me, being in the moment and being the present moment and enjoying it, because you never know what the next moment is going to bring. And for me, it's infinite possibilities, really. And so, because when you can, with the forgiveness, it can also heal your body. Because when you're in touch with your heart, with your aches and pains, then you realize that there's something not right. The more you're in touch with your body, the better. Now, there's 4 forgiveness that start with R. Always have that responsibility. And we talked about that responsibility before as well, about how important it is to accept what has happened and show yourself that compassion. Compassion for you, compassion for others. And the restoration is, the remorse is to, for the second R, is to own that gateway to the positive behavior when you feel the guilt and the shame. Use that remorse as a gift. Everything is a gift that is given to you. Nothing happens for no reason. There's always a reason behind everything that happens. We may not always see it. We can't see around corners sometimes. And when we have that restoration for the third R, is to make amends and forgiving, knowing, especially for yourself, that you can forgive yourself and forgive others who have not done you right. For school, I hated school, for all those things that happened to you before, is to be able to forgive that. And the renewal is to learn from your experiences and to share them. Anything that I learn, I can't wait to share with someone else, because I just think it's so precious that I need to tell somebody else. So how do you know 5 ways to truly forgive someone is to be happy? It's not about being right. Sometimes we just have to be right. No, for us, it's to be happy, to be a win-win. And get some perspective about what you're actually seeing, because sometimes we're too close to it. I love to stand on the balcony and look down. And what would you do if you were looking down on yourself? What action would you take? Looks quite different when it's too close to you. Do you agree that it would be quite different when you're right up here? But if you can see down, we can often give advice to other people, but not to ourselves. It's usually because we can see objectively better than we can. And give it time. It's not one of these things that you can go, I'm forgiving now. Yes, I'm more forgiving. I'm sorry. It's not quite as simple as that. It does require a lot of courage and wisdom, but every step counts. Every step we take, every thought we have, every feeling or response that we are aware of, that's when we can start making changes. So self-awareness is number 1, and being mindful about how we are behaving and having the real purpose about the goodness and the wellness of being, having that purpose. What is your real purpose? So forgiveness with boundaries is the main reason is to forgive someone, is to be able to have your well-being first. It's not about the other person. It's about you, how you will feel, and letting it go. Letting go is you can hold things in your hand and you can be like this. And this is what takes the energy and the tension. This is the stress. But you can also hold it on top of your hand and it's quite relaxed. So you don't always have to be holding something like this. We can hold it on the top of our hand without any stress. So redirect your focus towards what you want in life. Look forward. Don't hijack your emotions for your happiness. You can take back your power. We are so easy giving away our power unknowingly. So when you become aware, you realize how you're feeling and act on them intuitively. We all have limiting beliefs at all times, but one way I feel like it's not, you don't want to spend your whole life trying to get rid of your limiting beliefs, but you want to suspend them. So when you're making decisions, you just take that in a critical way for a while and make your choices intuitively, much more heartfelt. So the main reason to forgive someone is to have more inner peace. You may not get an apology if you're expecting one, but you never may get one. You may not even get closure. It may always just be that you have said what you have had to say, and that person may be angry, might have a different response. Recently, with some clients I asked them I'm going to give you a gift. And I want you to accept this gift. Without explaining what the gift is, you give that gift to that person and they accept that with however they would like. It's quite powerful. It's probably not as that. When my clients did it, they actually cried straight away when I said a gift of forgiveness or a gift of love. Forgiveness and love are come together. Everything boils down to love in the end. No matter which way we come through, which door we come through, it always ends up that we come from the heart. It's easy just to say to somebody, if I say I love you, it's got nothing to do with you. So I leave you with on that note is that I feel that's a really important message, that we are not expecting anything. We're just giving you love. So I give you love all tonight, and thank you for so much for listening. And thank you so much for this opportunity to meet others around the world and globally. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. Again, that was wonderful sharing there. I find it absolutely mind-blowing that all you wonderful people here, you incredible speakers and thought leaders, have been able to share situations in your life which are traumatic and upsetting, but you're choosing to relive the experience, well, not relive the experience, but retell what's happened for the good of other people. And what I loved about what you said there in your speech, which I think resonated massively with me, was the fact that if you get information, you pass it on and you want to share what you've known and how you've grown. And this is the commonality that you have when you get around people who are speakers or people who are thought leaders and coaches that have the same mindset, because you've realized that you can help people with that gift of knowledge. And I think that everybody, just as yourselves do, has some knowledge. And who are we to hold on to it? We got given that knowledge somehow by somebody else. Surely it's only right that we pass it on. We shouldn't hold on to it just for ourselves. It needs to be shared. We need to share the love and share that gift with those around us. And so I very much resonated with what you said, and I've resonated with all of you today, and I hope that our audience are enjoying this summit as much as we are here. The GST team are grateful for all of you being here, and thank you very much for your wisdom today, Saulan. Did I say that correctly? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Is it close enough? Oh, I'm so grateful. But yes, it's just been absolutely phenomenal. And I would like to invite our audience to put questions into the chat as well, because I'm sure that our guests will be very happy to follow up. And we're also inviting the guests to put their information, their contact details into the chat so that you can get hold of them should you resonate with somebody particular and you'd like to speak to them more, or perhaps even work with them. You'll be able to get in touch with them. And without further ado, I've got our very last speaker coming on our GST stage today. It is the lovely, the beautiful TinaAHull, and she's coming to us today from oh, I forgot, I don't have it written here where you're from. Where are you coming to us today from, Tina?
I'm from the Caribbean island of Nevis.
That's right. I knew you were in the Caribbean, but I couldn't remember which island it was. So I wasn't even going to guess because there's so many of them.
Right.
But Tina is a restorative health guide, a motivational speaker, an empowerment activator, and Akashic Records consultant. Did I pronounce that one correctly?
Akashic.
Okay, it's a different emphasis on the vowels. It's the accent thing. I'm going to put it down to the accent. But she helps women break the chains of suffering without having to relive those experiences so that they can be happy, thrive, and be healthy. Tina is also a quantum healer, and she has been in the world of wellness in that field for 30 years. So I welcome to the stage with absolute pleasure, Tina.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah. So I must say to my fellow panelists, you are impressive, amazing, and your journeys and your stories have been very inspiring, and wow, I can't even imagine going through that. So my journey starts with my marriage, and there's been a lot of forgiveness. I had to forgive my parents at different stages for different things that had to happen. So I also with Saulan, I have had that forgiveness muscle working in my favor. So when my marriage started breaking down and getting to a point where it was beyond unhealthy, there was a moment 4.5 years ago on my birthday weekend where I just put a line in that sand and it was no turning back from it. I had hoped and I had prayed that we would be able to work it out, but usually what it meant was I was the one that initiated the conversation in the past. And this time it was not happening because it wasn't my fault. I wasn't the one who instigated. I didn't deserve the behavior, and I didn't deserve the words that were very hateful and hurtful. And for the first time, I actually stepped into that boundary and I said, no more. And I had conversation with him. We were still living in the same residence. So we have 2 one-bedroom apartments, part of the home. And so he went to one of the apartments to live. We have 2 beautiful daughters. At the time, they were 16 and 18. And after one of the conflicts that happened that weekend, I left the kitchen table, dining room table, and I went into one of the apartments because I was really upset. And his words were so hateful and so angry and so vile. And so I was crying and I didn't want my girls to see it, and I wanted my own space. And I'm sitting kind of picking up my food, and my youngest daughter comes in and she says, Mom, are you okay? And I said, not really, this is not good. And at that moment, I realized that when I was 16, I also said the same thing to my mother as she's crying in the kitchen and asking her why she stayed. My daughter, I said to her, Vanessa, do not allow any man to speak to you like that. And she said, and she loves her father with all her heart. Her and Elton were really tight, and they had this deep connection. And she said, Mom, why do you? And I was like, oh my God. It was like a huge slap in my face because I'm like, oh, damn. And thankfully, I was doing a lot of personal development work, and because things have been faltering, because as marriages do, it's not like one and done. It's usually accumulation of things that are happening over time, and things are not working out. And like Saulan, I was getting alopecia. The crown of my scalp was starting to really thin out, and my brush was really thick with hair when I was brushing it. And I just kept thinking, what the heck is going on? And I didn't even put the 2 together until that weekend. And then I realized, okay, maybe there's some healing that I need to do on this end. So went through healing process, a forgiving process with him, even though he's a narcissist, I realized. And when in that realization, he kept digging his foot in deeper and deeper and being more hurtful and more, he lashed out even more. And what I'm now understanding with narcissists is that that's what they do. So they can have a trigger moment, and the trigger moment from him was me not tolerating at all. And so I shut down, and I had to forgive myself for not communicating. But every time I tried to say something to him, I was being blasted with hurtful, hateful things. So I own that, and I also gave it to him, back to him, because it was his. So Fast forward about a year and a half later, he would have conversations. We would have quote unquote family meetings. And in these family meetings, he would basically always turn it around. So it was about something I did wrong, didn't do. I was a bad mother. I was a bad wife. I was a bad provider because I was the main provider in the family. And so there was all these things, and he kept twisting things to make me look like the bad person. So then my girls started taking that on, and they started really treating me like I was a pariah in my own home. And they started to not talk to me, and they started to distance themselves from me, and they started to see the story differently. Like, our journey has been beautiful really up until that point, and I have been very much a part of my girls' lives. And all of a sudden it was, well, you don't do anything for us, you haven't done anything for us. Like, all our past had been erased. And one birthday 2 years ago, it seems to happen around the birthday, my girls, so he was in the apartment on the main floor at the time, and my girls ran past me while I was in the kitchen, out of the bedroom, into the apartment, which is attached to the house. And they closed the door, and it was almost like they had to ask permission from him to actually wish me a happy birthday. They came back into the house and ran past me and said, "Happy birthday, Mom." And that was it. Now, his birthday's in December, my birthday's in February. In December of the year before, they had asked me if I would take them shopping to buy the ingredients for a cake for him. I took them shopping. I dropped them off at the friend's house that was baking the cake. I picked up the cake. I brought it back. I also then took them to get food that they wanted to buy for lunch. They didn't buy me anything, but they bought for him because it was his birthday. They barely said thank you. Now, I did that out of the goodness out of my heart, not knowing that in 3 months later, this was going to happen. Now, I might have still done it in hindsight, but at the time, I probably wouldn't have. So I sat with myself, and I was learning boundaries, and I was learning to be in my personal power, and I was learning how to figure out who I was, because in that kind of narcissistic relationship, you lose who you are, and your voice is not your own. You're hearing his voice all the time. There's so much doubt, there's so much fear, there's so much worry. You know, what if I say this or do this, then this is the reaction and the response, and it was awful. And so I was getting to know myself again with distance and time from him. So this was about 2 years into the relationship now. And I remember following a coach, and she was talking about everybody being the movie star in their own movie. And so I took a couple of days, and I really sat with it. And I said to the girls, you know, you would not treat your enemy like that. This is not okay. I get that you're having conflict between the two of us, and I'm sorry for that, but that's not my fault. I'm not creating that. And my youngest daughter gave me such an aha moment, and I knew at that point in time that all I could do was forgive them and let them go. And she said, "Mom," well, at the time, I think she called me Tina because she didn't think I was a mother. So she said, "Tina," she said, "I can't love you and my dad at the same time." So they were made to feel like they had to choose. And he was making them feel that the choice had to be theirs, him, because he was putting stories into their heads, and they never asked me any questions if it was true or not, or if it was what happened. And so at that moment, I was just like, okay. So I just let them go. It took a while, and I just said, okay, I give it up to you. This is your journey. I'm not going to put the pressure. I'm not going to make you choose like he is, you know, and make them feel bad for not saying happy birthday or being their behavior. It just didn't make any sense for me to do that and put that on them. That's the last thing I want to do, is cause them more hurt and pain. And so they left a year and a half ago in February again. February, it happens in February. And they left. The day they left, I walked around the house saying freedom, freedom, peace. I did not know how much I was holding in my body at all. It was amazing to me. And I'm pretty aware. I'm pretty aware of my body. I'm pretty self-aware of what I think and what I say. And at this point, I was hyper aware of everything. And so when he would lash out, I would just smile. He didn't get the reaction or response out of me. And so that really galled him even more, which spurred him on even more. But it was important for me to be who I wanted to be in the moment, because at one point I was reacting and responding to him. I was completely out of my power. And I thought I had to justify and I had to explain and I had to try to get him to understand what my perspective. And the truth is they won't, nor is it their job to. It is our job to be responsible for us and who we are being and our actions and our responsibilities. And we have to take responsibility for that, period. So when he would say things that at me that were hurtful, it rolled literally off my back at that point, because I was getting so clear with who I was and who I wanted to be. And I didn't want to be that ugly person anymore that was lashing, and meeting him at his level, truly. So I understand that there are many parents that do this, unfortunately, in the world, where they create sides with one child, one parent versus the other. If you're a parent that's listening, I encourage you not to do that if you can. It really does hurt the child more than anything else. And it hurts you, because they will eventually see the truth. And when they see the truth, you will not come out in a good light. The other thing is that it's your kid's journey, and you've got to allow them the space and the time and the energy to go through it. I know they've got a lot of healing to do. They've got a lot of things to work through, and that's okay, because again, it's part of their soul's journey that they've come here for. So I can be available to them. I will have open arms if they do come back. I give them, I have soul-to-soul conversations with them. I send them love all the time. I also send him love, because I know that right now their future is tied to him. So if he's not successful, if he's unhappy, if he's unhealthy, then they're in trouble. Because if he's in trouble, they're in trouble, because they're only 20 and 22 still. And so I really encourage people to figure out a way to step into your power, know who you are, know the truth. And that way, what other people think and say to you and about you really will not matter. And that's the truth. That's my truth. And I have lived it. And Saulan, happily, my hair has grown back in. It's healthier than ever before. And it's actually curlier than ever before, which is really amazing. So we can heal. And that is definitely a message as well.
There are a lot of messages there, Tina. Wow, what a way to end our speakers today, our summit. I just want to say, again, sharing something which is that's impacted your life so much, to get that message out is the most powerful thing that you can give others. And everybody on the panel has given that gift today to our audience, to empower you to find yourself with the power of forgiveness. Tina, I absolutely loved listening to you. I was so engrossed in your story that I didn't even check Facebook, and I wasn't putting any messages in, because I was just, it was like I was there with you, and I could feel the pain as a mum of and living through that. And I think the message that you gave then to other parents, where the temptation is to where the temptation might be to say something inappropriate about another parent when you're angry and you haven't forgiven them yet. I think you made a very, very important point when you said that, I'll say it in my words, the truth comes to light in the end. And as children grow, they won't always be children, they will become adults, and they will find out the truth. They will understand what they didn't understand at the time. And it's a very important message, because that's a lesson learned, isn't it, for the people who make that decision to have the anger instead of go down that path of forgiveness. And no, none of us here is saying that forgiveness is easy, are we? I mean, every speaker here today has proven that they have gone through trauma, that they've gone through situations in their life which were less than desirable, and for want of a better word to describe them, and they have come through in their own time and seen the light and realized the power of forgiveness. I think that this has been one of the most inspirational summits that we've ever had here at GST. I think the caliber of speakers is off the charts. I cannot say how grateful I am to all of you. I know we have TED speakers here who I'm sure our listeners can look up your TED speeches on the YouTube, etc. And I do encourage everybody to watch the replay again, even those joining us live. I certainly will, because there is so much to glean from every person's story here that they almost deserve a summit of their own for that particular story, and a chance for people to interact and share. But this is your chance to give your comments and your questions and your appreciation for our guests today in the chat when you do watch the replay. Please do put #replay if you do. And I would like to hear from the panel of speakers. We have had to have some guests leave us because of other engagements. However, we do still have our lovely ladies here, and I'm going to call on them to just share, as we close out today, one thing that people could do, one action that someone could take now on the road to forgiveness that you could think could be very powerful and impactful for someone to do today. I hope that's a question that you're up for, ladies, that you can share an idea to finish us off with. Who would like to go first?
Well, I will just repeat what I said. Just practice it. It is a muscle. Practice it on the little things, so when the big things are there, it becomes that much easier.
Absolutely brilliant. I love that. Thank you. Tina? Oh, Saulan, sorry.
That's all right. I think self-care. Out of the 5 steps that I do, the self-awareness, the mindfulness, purpose, connections, really important. But self-care is one of the hardest things that people find, really difficult to do, and I think it's the biggest step, because we're really taking back our own power. And we're owning it. We're really owning that we deserve it. And it takes a little work, but it's worth it. And it brings so much joy. What I wanted to say to Tina was, I actually used to wear a wig for about 25 years. And when I turned 70, I whipped off my wig and started wearing scarves. And so,
Yay,
I actually feel so liberated. I've just taken that off. I feel like I'm flying.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
That's all right. So self-care, otherwise, it's not that I have any suffering as much, but it brings me so much joy to be able to share everything that I have ever learned. So thank you so much for this opportunity. So self-care, go for it. Self-care.
Self-care. And like I say, these are just the one thing that you want people to do today, because I know there's going to be lots of takeaways for our listeners, because I know how many that I've even got in my bag already. I'm going to start my forgiveness journal straight away. But Tina, let's hear from you.
So I use the moon cycles to help us release and let go. We're coming into a full moon now, so it's not the best time, but it's still a good time. And I get people to write on one side of the page all the people that they feel the need to have forgiveness from, or they need to forgive. And then also write out, if you want, you could journal like all the emotions, just get it out, because it will eat away at you, because holding it is so heavy and it's so detrimental to your health, not the other person's health, your health. So I encourage them to write it out. So if you want to have curse words and, no one's going to watch it, listen to it, read it, whatever, then you're going to tear it up, you're going to bury it, or you're going to burn it. And that is just setting it free, letting it go, because it could be as simple as that.
I love it. Brilliant. Thank you. And I'm just going to add to that I heard those words again. And I think there's something that are going to resonate from this. The power, keeping hold of your power, not letting your power go. It's been a thread that's been going through today. So while you're working on your self-care, while you're doing all of these wonderful things to find forgiveness, make sure you are holding on to your power and that you're not giving it to other people. Thank you so much, ladies, for finishing off with such important wisdom there for our guests, for our our audience today. Thank you, guests, for being here. I can't thank you enough. You're all absolutely extraordinary. I'm looking forward to hearing where we can hear from you, where we can get in touch with you in the chat. I'm looking forward to questions from people who are watching today. And I'm also looking forward to possibly seeing you in our GST community, which is a lovely place where people of all the same sort of mindset can gather, that understand that thing that we discussed earlier, that when we have something that we need to share, it's best that we get it out, because it's not ours to hold on to. Let's share our voices. Let's make sure that everybody who feels that they have something to say but is a little camera shy makes the opportunity to do that. And wonderful people like yourselves are role models that are invaluable to that process. So we have loads of people like that in our community. It's a mix of those who are just starting out, trying to find the encouragement to be inspirational to others, as well as those who are already living each day as motivation towards other people. So thank you again. And I would like to say to everybody who's watching, thanks for being here. Make sure you come next month, because we're going into the odd numbers again. This was our 30th summit. Next month, join us at the end of the month for our 31st. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for being with us. Take care. Bye-bye.